Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Philip Christopher. I'm president of the International Coordinating Committee Justice for Cyprus. As you know, this is a sad day for us. We are commemorating the 40th anniversary of the Turkish occupation of 38% of the island of Cyprus. 40 years ago, the nation of Turkey, utilizing American-made arms in violation of the rule of law of the United States, invaded the Republic of Cyprus, and for 40 years it has been occupying 38% of the island, while 200,000 Greek Cypriot refugees are waiting to go back home. I'm happy to have with us the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee with me here today to make a statement in regards to ending this big injustice, the occupation of Cyprus. Andy?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman and 5 people respond. So let me thank Philip and recognize the Cypriot ambassador and government spokesman, and my colleague, distinguished colleague and the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, for joining on what is clearly a dark day in history. 40 years ago, Turkey invaded northern Cyprus and in violation of, from my perspective, all international norms and law at the time, and has continued to unjustly occupy northern Cyprus and divide a nation that once was a prosperous nation, a nation in which Turkish and Greek Cypriots stood side by side with the expectation of an even brighter future. That future, particularly for those northern Cypriots, has been darkened by the continual occupation of Turkish forces, making it one of the most militarized places in the world, unnecessarily so, and has divided families. I visited years ago individuals in Kukula village, which in fact is originally a refugee camp, which still people who lost their homes and had to flee to what is the Republic of Cyprus and continues to be the Republic of Cyprus. It is long past the day in which Turkey should remove its forces. It is long past the day in which the international community should be speaking with one voice about the necessity of reuniting Cyprus with a Cypriot-led effort that seeks to reunify the island as it once was, as one nation. I personally, as the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, will continue to press our administration to be a force for getting to that point. I believe that even on this dark day that we commemorate of 40 years of unjust occupation and invasion, that there can be a bright future. I believe that the economic zone that is shared by Cyprus and Israel, where energy abounds, can be the key that unlocks a future of hope and opportunity and a driver of understanding that in fact the nation needs to be reunited. And I will not rest until the last boot of the last Turkish soldier leaves northern Cyprus and we have a process that brings the nation once together reunited as it once was and as it can once again be. And I thank the chairman of my House Foreign Relations Committee for joining with me together in a letter to President Obama to make the case that this is a moment in history, yes, to commemorate, but also to drive American influence to get a just resolution to this unjust reality of the last 4 decades.
Well, I'm Congressman Ed Royce. I'm the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and as Senator Menendez has shared with you, he and I did send a letter to the president on this issue of reunification in Cyprus, on a just solution to the problem in Cyprus. And one of the reasons I feel passionately about this is I have been in northern Cyprus. I have visited there, and I've seen some of the consequences of this very tragic split. The culture is the same, Greek Cypriot culture and Turkish Cypriot culture, but here in the middle of this vibrant, beautiful, beautiful island stretches the barbed wire. And on the other side of the barbed wire are these sites which once had vibrant markets or were a cultural attraction which would bring tourists from all over Europe, all over the world. Today they're vacant. This is unnecessary. This is an opportunity, frankly, to create more economic growth, an opportunity for the next generation of Greek and Turkish Cypriots. I've talked to Turkish Cypriots about their desire. They say, we are one culture. We can work together. Let us work this out. Yes, let's let them work this out. Let's have the Turkish forces, leave the island, and we can work out a just resolution for the future. But I guarantee you, if we can do that, it can be one that guarantees everyone's rights. When I was in northern Cyprus, and most recently, again, I heard about cases. The Maronite ceremony, for example, in northern Turkey, in which Turkish military authorities said no. The local Turkish religious leader, Cypriot religious leader, said, no, let them continue. He tried to intervene. No, let them continue. But no, the Turkish military said, no, not. They will not have their religious ceremony here. We have the difficulty with respect to the churches in northern Cyprus. Everyone's faith can be protected. The interests of Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots can be protected if we allow them to work this out. And that's going to require leadership on the part of the United States. That's why I'm proud to join with Senator Menendez and call upon the United States government. Let's get engaged here in helping to resolve this dispute. 40 years is too long for barbed wire to run across this beautiful island. Let's have the United States weigh in and help figure out a way forward. Thank you all very much.
I'm Andy Manitos. You've just heard from the one individual who's selected by the entire House of Representatives to lead the foreign affairs of that body, and the individual selected by the United States Senate to lead the foreign affairs of that body. We saw just a few weeks ago the highest ranking American official to ever go to Cyprus since the invasion and talk about the high priority our government has on ending that. We've heard from both Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots about the desire to end the division and the occupation, and we've also heard from the government of Turkey saying that they are ready to withdraw their troops. And so now with all of this in place, we will see if they do follow through with that commitment. And as this could be the beginning of the end of the barbed wire separating the country, we're going to have the two chairmen symbolically cut the barbed wire over here to the left of the podium.
Mr. Ambassador, come over here.
Είναι το 30ο συνέδριο της Ψέκα στα 40 χρόνια που έχουν περάσει από την τουρκική εισβολή που λαμβάνει η χώρα εδώ στην Ουάσιγκτον, και νομίζω είναι όλα τα συνέδρια, σε όλα αυτά τα συνέδρια έχω παρευρεθεί και τα έχω καλύψει. Είναι δύσκολο αν είσαι Έλληνας ή αν είσαι Κύπριος δημοσιογράφος να μπορείς να εκφραστείς αντικειμενικά σε αυτή την κατάσταση, σε αυτό το δράμα το οποίο περνάει όλος ο ελληνισμός, και ειδικά εδώ εμείς οι Ελληνοαμερικανοί προσπαθώντας να αλλάξουμε τη στάση της αμερικανικής κυβέρνησης, η οποία ως γνωστόν έτσι όλα αυτά τα χρόνια ήταν με το μέρος των Τούρκων. Για πρώτη φορά φέτος νομίζω ότι υπάρχει μία αχτίνα αισιοδοξίας. Φαίνεται ότι όλες αυτές οι αλλαγές που έχουν συμβεί στην περιοχή, οι ενεργειακές ανακαλύψεις, τα προβλήματα τα οποία αντιμετωπίζει η Τουρκία με το Ισραήλ, η αλλαγή σε κάποιο βαθμό κάποιων πτυχών της πολιτικής της Ελλάδας και της Κύπρου έχουν αλλάξει τα δεδομένα. Έτσι, για πρώτη φορά τους τελευταίους μήνες ακούμε θετικές δηλώσεις εκ μέρους υψηλόβαθμων Αμερικανών αξιωματούχων, όπως είναι ο Αντιπρόεδρος των Ηνωμένων Πολιτειών, ο Τζον Μπάιντεν, οι οποίες μας γεμίζουν αισιοδοξία ότι αν όντως αντικατοπτρίζουν στην πολιτική της αμερικανικής κυβέρνησης και δεν είναι προσωπικές θέσεις, θα μπορέσουμε τέλος πάντων να δούμε μια διαδικασία η οποία σύντομα να οδηγήσει στον τερματισμό της 40χρονης κατοχής του βορείου τμήματος της Κύπρου.
He's always been there with us. Thousands of people are trying to see a person in his position. We're very honored that he took the time to be with us. Congressman Elliot Engel.
Thank you very much, Andy. I always tell this joke that when someone says such nice things about me, I wish that two of the women in my life could be here to hear it, my late mother and my wife. And my mother would have believed every wonderful thing you said. My wife would have wondered who you were talking about. To say this, the bill on the missing in Cyprus was really the first substantive bill that I passed in my congressional career. I'm now in my 26th year. And so when I think about all the foreign policy initiatives, it's the missing in Cyprus that really made the difference. Andy is very, very modest, and I appreciate all the accolades and all the talk about that it was done by me alone. But the truth is that Andy guided me every step of the way with this. We collaborated on this together. We talked about it together, and I think you all know that Andy and Mike have been really so effective in terms of getting the plight of Cyprus in front of all the members of Congress. It's something, for me, coming from New York City and growing up with Greeks all my life, that made me naturally embrace the community. But we have lots of members who come from other places all over the country where they probably never met a Greek person, or maybe only in Washington they have. And so it's really important that we educate people as to what's really happening in Cyprus. So I'm really honored to be here, honored to work with Mike and Andy and Phil Christopher and all the wonderful people that I've worked with all these years. So it's 25, 26 years I've been in Congress. It's 40 years that Cyprus has been occupied. 1 year is too much. 40 years is an obscenity, and it's time that it ends. And it's time that the protection or handling Turkey with kid gloves ends as well. We may be in a position now to finally make progress. Mike Menetos and I were talking just outside about how Joe Biden has been so helpful and that the administration is at a point where it can push Turkey and wants to push and resolve this issue. And so we may be facing a window of opportunity, and it's really, really important that we put the pressure on. The fact of the matter is that Cyprus is an island, and it's been occupied, the northern part of it, by Turkey for far too long. Turkish troops need to go. That is the bottom line on all of this. We can talk about how it happens and whatever, but Turkish troops have to go. And I would look forward to seeing Cyprus more integrated with the United States in partnership for peace and in even becoming a member of NATO. I've watched with much happiness the warming relationship between Cyprus and Israel, the fact that both countries can share natural gas reserves developed by an American oil company, Noble. And it's really important to watch that collaboration. There was a time when it seemed like countries, including ours, including the United States, would always be a net importer of energy. And we have seen in the United States that now we have the ability to be a net exporter. That is also true down the line of both Cyprus and Israel, and the collaboration together is something that many of us have thought was natural. Geographic proximity is very close, and I really think it's very important. So I just think it's very important that the administration, the Obama administration, continues to understand that the Congress is much behind the people of Cyprus, and certainly Democrats in the Congress. I'm the ranking member, as Andy said, of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, which means I'm the lead Democrat. And the chairman, Ed Royce, and I have worked closely together on a number of issues, including these. And I think, again, it's very, very important that Turkey, as a so-called NATO ally, needs to be pushed and not needs to be coddled. And hopefully we can get this done. I know there have been discussions and meetings between Cypriots, both Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots. I think the United States can play a very important role. And of course the pro-Cypriot community, the Greek American community, has always been active politically. And it's very, very important that the community continues to stay active politically, to put pressure on people who may not know the issues, members of Congress who may not know the issues. We've always had one thing going for us in terms of Cyprus. We're on the right side, and we're not on the right side only politically. We're on the right side morally. We're on the right side of the way things should happen, because the invasion of Cyprus, with United States complicity or at best United States indifference, enabled Turkey to think that they could get away with the invasion. And we have to, 40 years later, let Turkey know they're not getting away with it, that we haven't stopped, and we're not going to stop till every last troop is out of Cyprus. Thank you.
Is exactly what Menendez is to us in the Senate. He does everything we ask for him, and he's doing a great job.
It's always good to see my good friends, and you'll always have me supporting you. Thank you.
But beyond that, on Hellenic issues, he's an individual who, as you will hear, has it in his heart, in his soul. So when we talk to him about these issues, we don't need to do any convincing at all. He's with us, and thank God that he is, because he carries a very, very big stick. And as I said, as you can imagine, as chairman of the committee, how many people want to be with him today, but we're very honored that he took the time to be with us. Congressman, Chairman Ed Royce.
Thank you, Andy. Let me say something about Andy and Mike before I begin here, and that is, in public life, many of us who go into government service talk about sacrifices that we make, but I see very few individuals who have made a very real sacrifice for principle. One of the exceptions to that is Andy Manitos. 40 years ago, I think it was 40 years ago, the invasion of Cyprus occurred. I can think of one public official who left public life on principle that the United States should step in and support the democratic cause of Cyprus. And that was Andy. And I can think of one former public official who ever since that day has worked to defend the principles that we hold dear as Americans. The freedom of religious, the religious liberty that we enjoy here, the sense of freedom that we enjoy here. That Statue of Liberty is supposed to be a statue with that flame to people all over the world. We are the nation that is supposed to uphold those values. And with respect to our relationship with Greece and Cyprus, we have a particular responsibility to do so given our heritage. And so I just appreciate Andy and Mike and the family's commitment to these ideals. And I also appreciate your commitment to these ideals. I think that, I've traveled to the beautiful country of Cyprus. My wife was with me. I went into northern Cyprus, and I had an opportunity to do something that you speak about, which is conversations with Turkish Cypriots. And how do they feel? How do they feel about the occupation of the country? And I know how they feel. And I know how beautiful the island of Cyprus is. And it is indeed heartbreaking to see firsthand the armed troops, to see the barbed wire, to see, that barbed wire slash through that country, and on the northern side of that wire, to see areas that were once a center of commerce and a vibrant part of Cypriot life, now in decay. And it is clear that this occupation by Turkey has not improved that area under their control. Instead, it has devastated whole neighborhoods. I have seen that. It has transformed those once thriving commercial centers, those tourist centers, into hollow ghost towns. And at times, effort to restore these areas, which would take nothing, efforts by Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots to restore these areas are blocked by Turkish authorities, who instead seem to prefer that that desolated state can be used as a bargaining chip in the negotiations. Well, you know, along with the need to restore these areas, there is an urgent need to restore and protect deteriorating church properties in northern Cyprus. And the need for the Turkish military to end the restrictions on the conduct of religious ceremonies by minority Christian congregations in these areas. And yesterday we had a hearing on this subject, and I know that many of you followed that hearing in the Europe Subcommittee on Democracy and Human Rights in Turkey. And I was able to raise the critical issue of how Turkish policies are infringing on religious freedom in northern Cyprus. Now is the time for the division and foreign occupation of Cyprus to end. And for that reason, yesterday, Chairman Menendez and I sent a letter to the President, to President Obama, urging increased attention and support for the issue of reunification efforts on Cyprus. And I want to bring to your attention some of the reasons that I feel this has reached a measure of urgency. A few months ago, an Orthodox cemetery just outside of Famagusta was demolished. It was transformed into a farmyard. Turkish forces were there. They did absolutely nothing to prevent this. In another instance, a Maronite worship service was disrupted by Turkish forces who compelled the congregation to disperse and refused to even listen to appeals by the Mufti of Turkish Cypriots to allow the service to continue. These are decisions being made by Turkey. It is clear that from this and other cases that the occupying Turkish forces are acting against the interests of Turkish Cypriot community members. That we understand. And these actions are increasing dissatisfaction among Turkish Cypriots with Turkey over its interference in affairs in Cyprus. It is time that the leaders in the Turkish Cypriot community listen to their people and act in their best interests by engaging in the reunification talks under the principles agreed upon in the February joint statement. And even more critical is that these talks should proceed without the interference, but instead with the full support of Turkey, and with the understanding that the Turkish occupation troops must immediately be withdrawn upon adoption of a reunification agreement. And that is why I will continue to raise these issues with our administration, as well as with Turkish officials, until the day when the people of Cyprus are once more unified and independent and at peace. And along the way, we will continue to protect the sovereignty on the issues such as oil and on other issues. We must weigh in. We in the United States must weigh in on the basis of these principles. And that is something that I'm committed to continue to do. Thank you very much. And Andy, thank you for having me.
Introduction he needs none, but I will tell you one thing. In the history of the Senate, in the history of this issue, we had Paul Sarbanes, who was just unbelievable, and Joe Biden has been fantastic. But Paul Sarbanes was retiring, and somebody, it might have even been somebody in this room, they said, Paul, what are we going to do on the Cyprus issue with you not in the Senate? And Paul, without a hesitation, said, you guys better make sure Menendez gets reelected. So that, there could be no better introduction than that. Chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Bob Menendez.
Well, thank you, Andy, very much. I'm sorry we're running a little late, but we have votes going on in the Senate, so I want to salute all of your leadership who has assembled here. Certainly the work that Andy and Mike Manitos do. I appreciate the Cypriot government spokesman being here, the ambassador being here as well. We've had many opportunities to interchange. There are many friends who I see here, and if I start recognizing them all, I will take all of my allotted time to recognize all of my friends in the room, but I deeply appreciate their friendship, but mostly their engagement and edification over years on this critical issue. I had hoped, as someone who has spent 22 years in the House of Representatives and in the United States Senate, that we would not reach this day. I had hoped that our collective work together would achieve a celebration, not a commemoration, of Turkey's invasion and occupation of northern Cyprus for 40 years. I had hoped that the United States government would understand the importance of a resolution to the Cyprus question in a way that reunifies the Cypriot people and at the same time produce for peace, security, and stability in a way that would have used the power of the United States with those actors that are important to get to a resolution to have achieved it. And that has not come to pass. So today we commemorate a dark moment in history in which the Turkish occupation and invasion of Cyprus 4 decades later is certainly too long. In the midst of recognizing that dark moment in history, I also want to recognize some bright spots along the way. And I want to commend you because oftentimes in the midst of our struggle, and I say our struggle because I have adopted it as my own, in our struggle to achieve the reunification of Cyprus in a bizonal, bicommunal federation where people can live side by side as they did prior to the invasion with civility and with a sense of Cypriotness, whether that be Greek or Turkish. I think that there are many things that have been accomplished because of the diaspora's engagement on critical issues. The security of Cyprus as it exists today, its ascension into the European Union, its ability to have a strong relationship, not just with the United States, but a developing relationship with the State of Israel at a time that I think that is critical as we see an economic zone that can be developed and be a game changer at the end of these 4 decades, is in large part, yes, due to the leadership of Cyprus and its people and its government, but also because of the work of all of you in the diaspora to move our government to a more responsive position, to ensure that Cyprus's security was preserved, to keep a UN mandate until we get to that moment in which we can see a reunified island, to be an advocate for its ascension into the European Union. Those are tremendous achievements that I personally do not believe would have happened but for the engagement of all of you and the respective associations that you belong to. So as we commemorate a dark day, I also don't want you to lose sight that your engagement has been meaningful and consequential. Now, I do believe that we are at a moment in which the dynamics of how we finally move this to the resolution we all want are very different than what we have lived over the last 40 years. I'm thrilled to have seen Vice President Biden, who I spoke with before he went to Cyprus, to have made the type of compelling statements that I would have expected, that I would have made had I been in that most recent visit, and that echo a very clear conscience of what I hope and expect will be not just his views, but that of the administration. That when the Vice President talked about invasion, when he talked about occupation,
when he demurred on the question of, not demurred, but he actually questioned the questions of some of the Turkish Cypriot leaders saying, well, you know, rotating presidencies and ultimately thinking that Turkey could ever keep its forces in northern Cyprus. Those were powerful statements that, made by the vice president, sends a very clear message from my perspective to the State Department, and is an echo of what I believe is a mandate that he was given by the President of the United States to do. And we will look to build upon that. I also think that the development of the economic zone that exists between Cyprus and Israel is a strategic and defining opportunity to change the course of events. Europe finds itself challenged by its being hostage to a small universe of energy suppliers and understands its need to diversify for its own economic and personal security. Cyprus can be an answer to that question. And in doing so, it has the opportunity to leverage that within the European Union as a member of the European Union to ultimately have both the United States and the EU create new leverages on Turkey that it has been unwilling to do before, so that the Turkish government would send a very clear message that it is finally willing to see the type of negotiation by Turkish Cypriots, led by Cypriots, and it cannot be done by anyone but led by Cypriots at the end of the day, to achieve the goal that this present Cypriot government is trying to accomplish. I think that that is an incredibly strategic opportunity that can change the course of events. And so we have to seize ourselves of that opportunity and to embolden it and to give it as much warmth as possible for it to ultimately achieve what we want to achieve. And sometimes time, circumstances, and history give you an opportunity that you may not have had before to change the course of events. I believe that this is that moment. And we must look at it and embrace it and promote it as such. I have, as the Senate Foreign Relations Committee Chairman, made it very clear in every ambassadorial appointment that comes before me that may have anything to do with Cyprus, such as our recent nominee to Turkey, or when we have had nominees to be the American ambassador to Cyprus, or when we have had assistant secretaries in charge of this part of the world at the State Department, to have a very clear definition of what I believe is acceptable and not acceptable as it relates to the ultimate resolution of the Cyprus question. And I will continue to be a strong advocate, and I am joined, I know you just heard from Chairman Royce, who I unfortunately didn't get to hear, but I am joined, as we just did in a mutual joint letter to the President, to take advantage of the Vice President's visit and reinforce upon the administration that this is a critical time to be engaged and to exert the necessary resources and pressure to come to a successful conclusion. So I know today's a dark day, but I also see light and a brightness for the future. And it is in that hope that a positive hope, not based on fantasy, but based on a real set of circumstances that can change the course of events, that we must embrace and pursue. And so I will tell you that whenever I have a hearing that involves this part of the world, I raise the Cyprus question. Whenever I have people from the State Department like Victoria Nuland, I raise the Cyprus question. I want them to know that this chairman is engaged in a way that is focused like a laser beam to the ultimate successful conclusion. And I will not rest for so long as I sit in the Senate or am chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations until the last boot of the last Turkish soldier leaves northern Cyprus, and ultimately we have a reunified Cyprus with peace and prosperity for the future. Thank you very much for having me with you.
The Cyprus Federation of America has been, along with Pseka, has been in the forefront of this fight for many, many years. And,
Thank you, Philip. I just want to congratulate Philip, Mike, and Andy for an outstanding job. I'm proud to be part of this group, to keep fighting for Cyprus, and hopefully one day, we're going to be together in here.
Hi everyone, I'm representing the New Jersey Cypriot Association Salamis. I wanted to say that I'm very proud of and thankful to the individuals who were mentioned before and all of you who are continuing to come here year after year and keep this Cyprus issue alive. Just wanted to add that truly I'm disappointed with our Cyprus government because for years now I have noticed that they follow the tactic of not mentioning the issue of invasion and occupation, and even more so the issue of ethnic cleansing. Because what has been happening in Cyprus for 40 years is truly ethnic cleansing. If you go through the actions of the Turks or what they have been doing since the invasion in the northern part, is the textbook definition of ethnic cleansing. And I cannot explain why our government is not mentioning that to every person and every government they meet with for years now. One explanation that I received is that that would not be a good tactic for rapprochement with the Turkish Cypriots, and I would respectfully disagree with that. A great man who lived here and died here, Martin Luther King Jr., not only spoke very harshly but demanded things from the other side, and at the same time spoke of love in the Greek words of eros, explained that you need to love your enemy, not to be in love, but to love your enemy, but at the same time demand what is right and demand the good for the human race. So I believe that we need to do that. We need to not forget that, and we need to make sure that other governments know that. I was a little boy when Cyprus was invaded. I was 11 years old. And I'm here in front of you today, and my hair is graying. And I never expected that we'd be here today, 40 years later, discussing the same issue, demanding the simple things, demanding human rights, demanding freedom for Cyprus, which, as the U.S. Constitution mentions, these are inalienable rights that every human being should have. I was born and raised in Lefkosia, and I'm very proud of that. I graduated from the Pan-Cyprian Gymnasium, and I'm even prouder of that because the students of the Pan-Cyprian Gymnasium, if you read Cypriot history, always contributed to the struggle of Cyprus for independence, freedom, and at some point the unification of Cyprus with Greece. I remember when I was a little boy, and at times we would drive with my family close to the Green Line, and I would see that the Turkish Cypriots could come out of their section of Nicosia, of Lefkosia, and I remember that we couldn't go visit Lefkosia on the other side. And I would ask my father, I said, why can I not go to see my hometown? The other half of my hometown is my hometown. And my father would say, that's the way things are. And that never made any sense to me. And that was even before the war. Some of you may not know this detail, but since 1963-64, when we have the intercommunal fights, us, the Greek Cypriots, could not go into the other side. And to this day, I have not seen the other half of my hometown. And today, Nicosia is still divided, and we need to unify that. I refuse to go see my hometown under Turkish occupation, and I refuse to ask for permission from the invaders and occupiers to see my hometown. I do want to see the other side of my hometown before I pass, but I want to do that in a free Cyprus. Thank you.
It's been 40 years since the illegal invasion, and we still have over 40,000 illegal troops. There are more troops there than almost the Cypriot Turkish people. So we need to get these illegal invaders off the island. We're hopeful about the new developments with the energy that has been discovered in Cyprus, and Cyprus is now part of the EU. Is important. That was an important step that we worked for under Madeleine Albright, but there's still much more that needs to be done. America is supporting the peaceful resolution, but in a way that is fair and just to the Greek Cypriots.
It's a real shame that this has happened. Of course, I remember the invasion. My grandfather was in Greece during the invasion. But I will tell you that we're doing everything we possibly can. I think that the Cypriots have made every effort in the world to resolve the situation. And again, I'm not going to rest until Cyprus is reunited. And I feel for the people. 160,000 people were displaced during the invasion. And again, we're not going to give up until this is done. And I know that the Cypriots, the Cypriot government, and President Anastasiadis has done, he's made efforts, overtures. The Cypriots are trying to resolve the situation, but Turkey keeps getting in the way. And again, everything we can do, we put pressure on the State Department. And again, I won't rest until this issue gets resolved. It's so very important to all of us. And I've always said that until Cyprus is free and united, I will remain, even though I'm of Greek descent, I feel like I'm of Cypriot descent as well. My father had a first cousin in the Famagusta area. He's married to a Cypriot lady, and they lost everything. So it's personal to my family. Σας ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ. Thank you.
Είναι μια μαύρη μέρα για την Κύπρο, μια αποφράδα μέρα για τον ελληνισμό, που ποτέ δεν μπορούμε να ξεχάσουμε. Εμείς εδώ για 40 χρόνια ερχόμαστε στη Ουάσιγκτον προσπαθώντας να βοηθήσουμε την υπόθεση της Κύπρου και ελπίζουμε όλοι μαζί, Κύπροι, Έλληνες Κύπροι και Ελλαδίτες Έλληνες και εμείς στη Διασπορά, να μπορέσουμε να βοηθήσουμε όσο πιο πολύ μπορούμε να διώξουμε τον Τούρκο κατακτητή για να υπάρξει επανένωση του τόπου μας. Αλλά αυτό δεν μπορεί να γίνει άμα δεν έχουμε ομόνοια και δουλέψουμε όλοι μαζί για ένα σκοπό, ο οποίος θα είναι μόνο να εκδιωχθεί ο Τούρκος κατακτητής. Οι καταστάσεις έχουν αλλάξει, δεν είναι πια το 2004. Είμαστε μέλος της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης. Έχουν αλλάξει οι καταστάσεις στην Ανατολική Μεσόγειο. Έχουν βρεθεί αέρια στην περιοχή μας, τα οποία είναι πολύ σημαντικοί παράγοντες για να έχουμε βοήθεια από τις μεγάλες δυνάμεις. Και όπως βλέπουμε, οι πολιτικοί της Αμερικής μας έχουν πει από τον Αντιπρόεδρο με όλα τα μέλη του Κογκρέσου εδώ, τα οποία συναντήσαμε, ότι η πολιτική της Αμερικής έχει πια αλλάξει και ότι η Κύπρος και η Αμερική έχουν μια στρατηγική συμμαχία. Εμείς πρέπει να εκμεταλλευτούμε αυτή τη στιγμή και αυτή τη στρατηγική συμμαχία. Επομένως πρέπει να έρθουμε εδώ με συγκεκριμένα αιτήματα και πρέπει όλοι μαζί να δουλέψουμε για να μπορέσουμε να προωθήσουμε τα δίκαια της Κύπρου και του τόπου μας, όπως είπα, για να μπορέσουμε να εκδιώξουμε τον Τούρκο κατακτητή. Μόνο με σύμπνοια και ομόνοια μπορούν να γίνουν αυτά και ελπίζω οι αδερφοί μας Κύπροι εκεί κάτω μια και τελευταία φορά ας προσπαθήσουν να συνοδευτούν και να δουλέψουν όπως το 1974 για την ανανέωση και αναζωογόνηση της οικονομίας μας και επίλυση του εθνικού μας θέματος.
Μετά από 40 χρόνια τουρκικής κατοχής μαζευτήκαμε όλοι εδώ στην Ουάσιγκτον στο Καπιτόλιο για να εκφράσουμε τη δυσαρέσκειά μας προς την αμερικανική κυβέρνηση και τους βουλευτές και γερουσιαστές για τη συνεχιζόμενη κατοχή της Κύπρου από την Τουρκία και την παραβίωση των ανθρωπίνων δικαιωμάτων των Κυπρίων. Ερχόμαστε κάθε χρόνο στην Ουάσιγκτον. Φέτος επελέξαμε να έρθουμε αυτές τις μέρες γύρω από τους εορτασμούς για την καταδίκη της τουρκικής εισβολής. Είναι μια ευκαιρία για μας τα 40 χρόνια για να θυμίσουμε στους εκλεγμένους Αμερικανούς πολιτικούς την τραγωδία που συνεχίζεται στην Κύπρο και είναι καθήκον όλων μας, ιδίως εμάς που ζούμε εδώ στις Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες, να ασκούμε συνεχή πίεση στους εκλεγμένους αξιωματούχους, ούτως ώστε επιτέλους η Αμερικανική κυβέρνηση και η εξωτερική πολιτική να κινηθεί προς τη σωστή κατεύθυνση για μια σωστή λύση του κυπριακού προβλήματος.
40 χρόνια της εισβολής είναι 40 χρόνια περισσότερο από ό,τι πρέπει να είναι. Ελπίζω ότι αυτός είναι ο τελευταίος χρόνος που θα αγωνιζόμαστε για τη λύση του Κυπριακού και ελπίζω ο 41ος χρόνος να είναι ο χρόνος εορτασμού για όλους μας. Σίγουρα για τα αδέλφια μας στην Κύπρο και εννοώ όχι μόνο τους Ελληνοκυπρίους αλλά και τους Τουρκοκυπρίους. Είναι καιρός η Κύπρος μας να επανενωθεί ως κράτος και οι άνθρωποι στην Κύπρο να ζήσουν μια διαφορετική ζωή η οποία να μην έχει την αγωνία της κατοχής και της εισβολής των τουρκικών στρατευμάτων. Το συνέδριο φέτος ήταν επιτυχέστατο. Οι τοποθετήσεις των γερουσιαστών και των λοιπόν εκπροσώπων της κυβέρνησης ήταν πάρα πολύ θετικές και μας δίνουν μια βάση για να ελπίζουμε ότι πραγματικά θα υπάρξει κάποια πρόοδος, σημαντική πρόοδος στη λύση του Κυπριακού. Βεβαίως είναι και η ευχή μας, αλλά εμείς εδώ στην Αμερική θα συνεχίσουμε τον αγώνα ανεξάρτητα για πόσα χρόνια θα απαιτηθεί για τη λύση του Κυπριακού. Και εύχομαι πραγματικά, όπως είπα προηγουμένως, φέτος να είναι ο τελευταίος χρόνος για αυτόν τον αγώνα.
Δυστυχώς είμαστε εδώ στη Ουάσιγκτον για τη σημερινή εκδήλωση για τα 40 χρόνια της εισβολής και κατοχής ενός μεγάλου τμήματος της Κύπρου. Η ελπίδα μας ήταν πάντα ότι σύντομα το πρόβλημα θα λύνονταν και δεν θα χρειαζόμασταν να ήμασταν εδώ συνέχεια. Φέτος είδαμε κάποια διαφορά στο κλίμα και στην ανταπόκριση από τους Αμερικανούς επισήμους, τόσο από το State Department, το Υπουργείο Εξωτερικών, όσο και από την κυβέρνηση του κυρίου Ομπάμα. Όπως ξέρετε, είχαμε συναντηθεί με τον αντιπρόεδρο, τον κύριο Biden, πριν από την επίσκεψή του στην Κύπρο και είχαμε και μια ενημέρωση όταν επέστρεψε από την Κύπρο. Το μήνυμά του ήταν θαρρυντικό. Τώρα περιμένουμε να δούμε τα αποτελέσματα αυτών των συναντήσεων και αυτών των πρωτοβουλειών. Μας έχουν υποσχεθεί ότι θα αναλάβουν μια πρωτοβουλία για να προωθήσουν το θέμα της Κύπρου, να προωθήσουν τις διμερείς σχέσεις και ευχόμαστε ότι θα δούμε αποτελέσματα σύντομα. Φυσικά πρέπει να τονίσω ότι αυτά ή κάτι παρόμοια έχουμε ακούσει και στο παρελθόν χωρίς να δούμε μεγάλη ανταπόκριση, αλλά φέτος νομίζω ότι τα πράγματα έχουν αλλάξει κάπως και εύχομαι ότι θα δούμε καλύτερα αποτελέσματα στο εγγύς μέλλον.
I'm very happy to be here today. It means a lot that we had so many people come out and support this. 40 years is far too long. We have to do something for the people of Cyprus. We have to end the occupation. The country has so much potential, and the fact that it's still going on 40 years later is not acceptable. We're optimistic that the United States, we had a number of congressmen and senators get behind this. We're going to move forward and hopefully put this to an end. I think we have to for the good of the country.
Βρισκόμαστε για ακόμα μια φορά στην Ουάσιγκτον για να καταδικάσουμε την τουρκική εισβολή και την συνεχιζόμενη κατοχή. και για τα 40 χρόνια που δυστυχώς έχουν περάσει χωρίς η διεθνής κοινότητα αλλά και η αμερικάνικη κυβέρνηση να έχουν κάνει κάτι σημαντικό για να τελειώσει αυτή η ιστορία. Ο ρόλος ο δικός μας, ο ρόλος της ομογένειας είναι να συνεχίσουμε τον αγώνα, γιατί πιστεύω ακράδαντα ότι με τη δική μας μικρή συνεισφορά έχουμε βοηθήσει ούτως ώστε θα έλεγα να αλλάξει έστω και λίγο η αμερικάνικη πολιτική όσον αφορά την Κύπρο. Φυσικά αυτό είναι συνέπεια της ανακάλυψης των κοιτασμάτων φυσικού αερίου στην Κύπρο, αλλά και πάλι έχουμε την ευθύνη να συνεχίσουμε τον αγώνα μας και ελπίζω αυτή την φορά η Κυπριακή κυβέρνηση και συνάμα η ελληνική κυβέρνηση να εκμεταλλευτούν τις περιστάσεις τώρα που συμβαδίζουν τα συμφέροντα της Αμερικής με τα δικά μας, ούτως ώστε να επέλθει μια συμφωνία στην Κύπρο, πραγματική συμφωνία, χωρίς στρατεύματα κατοχής και σε μια Κύπρο όπου ο κάθε Κύπριος από όπου και αν προέρχεται να μπορεί να απολαμβάνει τα ανθρώπινα του δικαιώματα και τις τρεις βασικές ελευθερίες. Νομίζω η σημερινή μέρα καταδεικνύει πόσο σημαντικός είναι ο ρόλος της κυβέρνησης, γιατί είχαμε τα πλέον υψηλόβαθμα στελέχη της Γερουσίας αλλά και της Βουλής και υφυπουργούς της κυβέρνησης που έχουν έρθει να μας μιλήσουν και να μας εξηγήσουν τη θέση της αμερικάνικης κυβέρνησης αλλά και τις τελευταίες εξελίξεις. Σημαντικό είναι ότι χθες ακούσαμε τους δύο υφυπουργούς που πρόσφατα επισκέφθηκαν στην Κύπρο. Φαίνονται εντυπωσιασμένοι από το τι γίνεται στην Κύπρο, πολύ ευχαριστημένοι με τη στάση της Κυπριακής κυβέρνησης και όπως είπα και πριν, ελπίζω η Κυπριακή κυβέρνηση επιτέλους να μπορέσει να εκμεταλλευτεί αυτή τη μοναδική ευκαιρία. Εμείς συνεχίζουμε τον αγώνα μέχρι ότου ο ήλιος της ελευθερίας λάμψει πάνω από ολόκληρη την Κύπρο και του χρόνου στην Κερίνια. Ευχαριστώ.
I'm Dina Titus. I represent Nevada's 1st District in Congress. I'm the only Greek woman in Congress. I feel very strongly about the need to reunify Cyprus. 40 years is too long. We have put out the olive branch. We have tried to make this happen, but we find our churches are destroyed. First Amendment rights are ignored. People's property is taken away. Turkey needs to come to the table. The United States Congress needs to make this happen now.
During this week, we commemorated the 40th anniversary of the Turkish invasion and continued occupation of Cyprus. All the Greek American organizations from all over the United States have come together here in Washington, D.C., and together with the leadership of the United States Congress, together with the State Department, and together with representatives from the White House, we have all sent the same message that it's time to end the occupation of Cyprus, and after 40 years allow the Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots to come together under one republic. The Republic of Cyprus is today a member of the European Union. And it is obviously a necessity that for Turkey to withdraw its troops, the occupation troops from Cyprus, for Turkey to finally compromise and allow the reunification of the island. The Republic of Cyprus, as a member of the European Union, can only move forward if there's a solution on the Cyprus problem. The discovery of energy, our relations with Israel, our relations with the United States would lead us to that type of a solution where the citizens of the Republic of Cyprus, regardless of their nationality, regardless of their religion, they will enjoy the same human rights all over the island. So we have a message of hope. We have a message of optimism. And that, as I always say, we have to have the courage to continue this fight, to continue the struggle until we see a free and united Cyprus.
40 χρόνια από την εισβολή στην Κύπρο και από την όντως βάρβαρη κατοχή ενός τρίτου του προσφυλιστάτου αυτού νησιού μας της Κύπρου. Ενθυμούμε την ημέρα που ακούστηκε το φοβερό νέο του πραξικοπήματος του στην Κύπρο. Ήμουν τότε στην Αθήνα και πολύ σύντομα μετά ακούστηκαν οι ειδήσεις περί εισβολής. Ειδοποιηθήκαμε και περιμέναμε να επιστρατευτούμε ανά πάσα στιγμή προκειμένου κατά πάσα πιθανότητα να μεταφερθούμε στην Κύπρο για να υπερασπίσουμε το νησί μας. Αλλά δεν έγινε αυτό και απλούστατα ότι ακολούθησε ήταν μια κατάσταση κατοχής η οποία παραμένει επί 40 χρόνια. Επί 40 χρόνια παλεύουμε ηρωικά και εντός της Κύπρου αλλά και εκτός της Κύπρου, οι Κύπροι αδελφοί ανά τον κόσμο, αλλά μαζί τους και όλοι οι Έλληνες, παλεύουμε για να τεθεί τέρμα σε αυτή την τρομακτική αδικία που έχει γίνει. Είχαμε υποσχέσεις, είχαμε δυνατότητες ότι κάτι θα γίνει, αλλά μέχρι στιγμής είμεθα ακόμη εκεί που είμαστε πριν από 40 χρόνια. Αλλά η ελπίδα ποτέ δεν σβήνει. Η ελπίδα δεν σβήνει διότι δεν στηρίζεται στην περίπτωσή μας σε ουτοπικές, φανταστικές, απίθανες καταστάσεις ή δυνατότητες. Δεν σβήνει γιατί στηρίζεται στην πίστη μας τον Θεό. Το Θεό που είναι Θεός δικαιοσύνης, ελευθερίας και αγάπης. Ένας Θεός δικαιοσύνης, ελευθερίας και αγάπης δεν θα αφήσει έναν λαό να εξακολουθήσει να είναι τόσο κατάφορα αδικούμενος. Πιστεύουμε και προσευχόμεθα και αγωνιζόμεθα ο Θεός γρήγορα να δώσει τη λύση, ώστε να μην χρειαστεί να περιμένουμε ακόμη μια αλλαγή η οποία θα ήτο υπό άλλες συνθήκες. Το φυσικότερο πράγμα του κόσμου, μια Κύπρος ενιαία, ενωμένη με τους λαούς της, να κατοικούν με αγάπη, ομόνοια και δημιουργικότητα. Ελπίζουμε, διότι πιστεύουμε, και επειδή πιστεύουμε, αγωνιζόμαστε, και επειδή αγωνιζόμαστε συν Θεό, είμαστε βέβαιοι ότι θα μας αξιώσει να γιορτάσουμε την ημέρα της δικαιοσύνης, της ελευθερίας και της χαράς της ζωής, η οποία είναι ένα τόσο έντονο χαρακτηριστικό του μεγάλου και ηρωικού και αγαπημένου νησιού μας, της Κύπρου. Ο Θεός να είναι μαζί με τους αδελφούς και φίλους και σήμερα και αύριο και πάντοτε, ως την ημέρα που θα χαράξει η αυγή για την ειρήνη και την δικαιοσύνη των αγώνων μας.